Hi there guys, Phoenix Aurelius here. Today we're going to be talking about the different ways of taking a spagyric tincture. It's one of the questions that we get asked all the time, how best to take a spagyric tincture. So today I'm going to show you multiple different ways that we have found and that historically we've discussed to take a spagyric tincture. So to begin with, most of our spagyric tinctures are sold in a 4 milliliter size, unless you order a 15 milliliter size, which has a different style. But 1 milliliter and 4 milliliter come in bottles more or less like this that have a orifice reducer, a little plastic orifice reducer. And this is cool because it prevents any liquid from dripping out unless you tap it. So each tap actually releases one drop. So the easiest way to do this is to tilt the head back, lift up the tongue, and place a single drop. Just like that. If you need to take 5 drops, 5 taps, that kind of thing. And same thing with this. The best way to get most of these is through a sublingual application. So tilt back, drop, and you're good to go. Now that does kind of leave the underside of the tongue a little bit raw, so if that's something that is a concern to you, then you can pull up a little bit of saliva under your tongue before you add these things, but you want to try and let them sit there for about 20 seconds to 30 seconds, even a minute if you can, and really let it seep in. So the second form of sublingual application actually involves a breathing technique, and this breathing technique is going to take all of the volatilized spirit and it's going to put it into the diaphragm and into the lungs to also open up the lungs and allow some of that spirit to be put into the bloodstream through your respiration. So the way that you do this is just like you would for sublingual application. Either pull up a little bit of saliva, or if you're a seasoned veteran like myself and it doesn't bother you, your tongue will adapt to that burn and that raw kind of chalky feeling after your first few applications. All you do is you take a little bit of this, drop it in your mouth, and then I'll show you the breath. So the technique there is to put it under the tongue and to breathe in like through a straw, through the mouth, deep into the diaphragm, and then pop it up into the chest and hold it inside of your entire upper respiratory system, and then breathe out through the nose after a few seconds. You know, whatever feels comfortable for you. This isn't a marathon, it's just trying to get everything inside of there. And then you keep breathing in and holding it and exhaling through the nose, breathe in through the mouth, hold it, exhale through the nose until there's virtually no more alcohol content that you can taste under your tongue. And that means that all of the ethanol has either been completely absorbed, diluted to a rate by saliva that it's no longer able to volatilize, or has entirely volatilized and been taken up by the lungs. This is probably the best method actually for taking philosophic spagyric essences, for taking essences per destillatio, and some of the more volatilized types of remedies in our spagyric apothecary, though it can just as easily be done with any spagyric tincture as well. All right, so the next way of producing a spagyric tincture, especially if you don't like the sublingual application or you don't like the alcohol content of how concentrated the ethanol content is inside of the spagyric tincture, there is another way, and this way is probably one of the most efficient ways of getting the spagyric tincture not just directly into the bloodstream, but also into the intestines and into the kidneys and urinary tract and other things as well. We specifically formulated Spagyri-Zyme probiotic enzyme formula to take with every single one of our spagyric tinctures. And if any of you ever take a little bit of Spagyri-Zyme and put one of your spagyric tinctures in there and just let it ferment for a little while, then you'll notice what the power of the probiotic enzyme is. It completely decomposes everything into its atomic elements. So if there's any sulfur inside of the material, you're going to get this strong sulfury egg smell to it. The ethanol even decomposes. Everything decomposes based on the unique synergy of the bacteria that form enzymes that break everything down inside of this product. And so that product ends, or that effect ends up happening inside of the body when you use Spagyri-Zyme. So we here at the Phoenix Aurelius Research Academy like using these little 5 ml beakers, and you can pick these up really cheaply on Amazon or even a local chemist supply store, and you can pick up like a pack of 10 or 20 of them for just a few bucks. So they're very available for those of you who are interested in taking spagyric tinctures in this way. If you don't have a 5 milliliter beaker, or you don't want to purchase a couple of them, then you can definitely just use a shot glass or a larger size beaker, or even like a little measuring cup that comes like on the top of a Pepto-Bismol can or something like that. Just something that's small enough to where you can actually get it out of the cup easily enough. So what you do is simply take your Spagyri-Zyme dropper that comes with the standard 4-ounce size, and you either are going to measure out about 55 to 60 drops, or just know that that's about 3 droppers full. So we put 3 droppers full of our Spagyri-Zyme into a little 5 ml beaker here. Then you add your Spagyric tincture. Typically 1 to 5 drops on most things, although some things can go up to 20 drops. It really just depends on what the application is and what you're looking to do with it. Today I'm just going to put 3 drops of a fresh ginger spagyric tincture inside of here, and swirl it all around. Throw this inside of the mouth, and you can either drink it straight away if you want, or I like to keep it underneath the tongue and just do a couple of breaths, just like I do with the inhalation method. And there you go. Now you've got something that's going to be delivered specifically to the digestive tract. All right, so if you want something to get specifically taken to just the urinary tract and to be filtered through the kidneys, it'd be a good idea to put this into a little bit of juice or water. When you're using juice, fresh pressed juice, especially cold pressed juice, is ideal, especially something that you made yourself just seconds ago. If you don't have that, Lakewood brand or a couple of other brands of juice that do sell cold pressed juices that are sealed and commercially available would be the next best option. So today we've got a little bit of pomegranate juice. Just gonna shake that up, add a small amount of juice, and then we're going to go ahead and add just a couple of drops of a spagyric tincture to that mix. And then down it. If you really wanted to get into the kidneys and the urinary tract, something maybe like cranberry juice would be an excellent option as well. And that's your dose of Spagyrics. The next way that you can synergize your spagyric tincture with a tisane, an herbal infusion, a decoction, or just a basic tea is to take an herb. Today we're just going to be making a very light infusion of honeysuckle tea. Just put a few petals in there. Seal our tea ball strainer and add some hot water. This way is excellent for people who want absolutely zero ethanol content, because the hot water will actually end up evaporating the ethanol. So just add a couple of drops of your spagyric tincture or essence and allow your tea to macerate, or your infusion to macerate for just a few moments inside of that water. And whenever you're ready, just go ahead and start sipping at it. If you're taking the spagyric to affect the pancreas or the liver or even the gallbladder, taking it with a little bit of honey is really good. That's because honey actually has to get processed, just like any sugar, by the liver first, secondarily by the gallbladder through a release of bile, and then also transmitted to the pancreas for blood sugar regulation. So you can take a little bit of honey. Here we have some honey with royal jelly, and just put a little bit on the end of a spoon, and then you can add a drop or two, or however many you want, of your Spagyric tincture. And to your very good health. All right, the next way, which is perhaps one of the most traditional ways of taking spagyrics, it's mentioned in a lot of the older texts, is to either take it in a little bit of white wine, which is what is mentioned, especially because white wine just circulates through the belly and goes to, it's got a lunar quality to it, so it circulates with the cycles of the moon. Or you can do a little bit of mead. Since we always make mead here at the Phoenix Aurelius Research Academy, I happen to have some on hand. Just going to take a little bit of this mead, and I like to pair mead in particular with Gifts of the Magi, but this can be done with absolutely any tincture. So I'm just going to take a few drops, Gifts of the Magi, and bottoms up, Tounge. All right, so there are a few other ways that you can take spagyric tinctures. One of the ways that I used to do very frequently would be to make a batch of raw chocolates. All you need is cacao butter and some cacao paste, and preferably some sort of sweetener, and be able to mix those all together, especially if you don't have a melanger. That's probably the best way to do it, just on the stovetop. And then pour it into your molds, and as the chocolate is cooling, add about 3 drops of your spagyric tincture to each chocolate. Of course you can add more, but remember that there is ethanol content in there, and this is why we do it while the chocolate is cooling, right as it's been placed in the mold, is that there's still enough heat that the alcohol is going to evaporate, and that's going to keep all of the medicine from the spagyric tincture contained inside of the chocolate itself. So that's one very popular way, and I like that way because it gets processed by the kidneys, it gets processed by the liver, it gets processed by a lot of different things. You can also, to get it into the bloodstream and also to the liver, take it in a shot of really finely crafted ethanol. I do not suggest using anything other than an organic ethanol source, like an organic whiskey, an organic vodka, organic cognac, something like that, or something that you know has absolutely very, very, very few fusel oils, if any, and that has absolutely no trace residues of pesticides or genetically modified materials. And that's simply because you don't want to take doses of poison with your doses of medicine. Lastly, if you want something to break the blood-brain barrier, you can add a spagyric tincture to a little bit of MCT oil. In fact, one of the things we do in our formulation is distill out all of the ethanol from a formula, reducing it down to a pitch, and then we dissolve that pitch inside of MCT oil and then drink it that way in order for a very concentrated effect. But being that you probably don't have the materials to do your own distillations, especially if something as small as a 4 or 15 ml bottle at home, just adding a couple of drops to warmed MCT oil will do a great thing. And many of you are probably thinking, can I add this to my bulletproof coffee, or can I use ghee instead of MCT oil or other things like this? The answer is absolutely. Even though caffeine is going to have a little bit of a slight different effect, and coffee is going to be a little bit different than other, bulletproof style drinks, you can still take them that way. So it's totally viable, and it's a perfect way to administer different spagyric tinctures in a creative way that fits your lifestyle.